As it reached its height of power, the Persian Achaemenid Empire began spreading its influence into mainland Greece, seeking to control and stabilize the Aegean Sea and make it a valuable harbor for military and trade vessels passing between Asia and Europe. The Greeks, Athens in particular, had lent support to the Ionians in the rebellion against Persia, convincing the Persian king Darius the Great that all of Greece must be subjugated if Persian dominance was to be retained in Anatolia. An invasion was launched and city after city fell, with Athens ultimately falling under Persian rule following their loss at the Battle of Marathon. Although Greece would rebel alongside other western provinces of the empire in later years, their suppression and the following centralization of Persia's hold over these regions under Artaxerxes III would make the empire the foremost power in the world, forcing Rome and Carthage to confine their expansion to the West Mediterranean, recognizing Persia as a force simply too powerful to topple, but also a reliable source of exotic goods from the Far East not worth agitating. During the 5th century BC, Athens and Sparta stood as the greatest powers of the Greek world. But behind the scenes, subtle tensions were rising. The Athenians had brought Greece together in a common defense against Persia, but now that Persia was repelled, Sparta sought a return to sovereignty and isolation. Athens, on the other hand, desired expansion and power. The Spartans rejected Athenian supremacy, especially the rising democratic nature of that state. But within Athens was a man who could bridge the gap between these two states, the great general and statesman, Cimon, who recognized Athens and Sparta as not rivals but two halves of a whole. It was without question that Athens was the greatest naval power of Hellas, nor was there any question that Sparta was its greatest land power. The path of opposition they were following would only see the Greek world torn apart. Instead, a partnership and union between the two, a diarchy of state power under an aristocratic model, would guide them and the whole of Hellas forward. Surpassing his pro-democratic rival Pericles in popularity and winning over the Spartans through successful support during the Helot Revolt, a Spartan-Athenian union is soon forged, transforming Greece into the Mediterranean's dominant power, the one who still faced challengers on all fronts, challengers it held no fear of facing. Alexander of Macedon succeeds his father Philip II as king of Macedonia, a kingdom which under Philip had come to encompass the majority of Greece, uniting it under the League of Corinth for the purpose of eradicating Persia as a threat once and for all. Alexander thoroughly eliminated all threats to his power, but soon found a number of the League's members in rebellion now that Philip was gone. He swiftly brought these rebellious lands back into line and proceeded to invade Persia, bringing it under Macedonian control before proceeding further into India and ultimately returning home victorious. Alexander's conquest would bring upon Greek civilization an unprecedented degree of wealth and power, ushering in a new golden age of Hellenistic prominence in the world. And while Alexander's empire would have no need to expand further across the Mediterranean, at least for the time being, Greece would continue to have a significant cultural impact upon Rome and Carthage. Now, before we go any further, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Endel. Folks, the world today can be a very overwhelming place. You're being hit with information constantly and are trying to meet the demands of the fastest age in human history. It's easy to forget that so much of the technology we have today is novel and we're only recently seeing how it fully affects us. If you've noticed a negative impact upon your ability to focus, in your ability to relax, or even in your ability to fall asleep because of overstimulation, then Endel might have the solution for you. Endel is an app that has taken a scientific approach to soothing the overstimulated mind through the use of soundscapes. Endel's AI system is built to adapt to your personal inputs and provide personalized soundscapes that engage your mind when you need a deeper level of focus or relax you without interrupting your natural circadian rhythms. They've backed this up with brainwave studies that show Endel is not only successful but the fastest and most consistent focus aid when compared to similar soundscape and music playlists. If that interests you, click the link in the description and check out Endel for yourself. The first 100 of you to follow that link will get a free 1-week trial of soundscapes to try out completely risk-free. Give it a try and see if it's right for you. Now, back to the video. The collapse of Alexander the Great's empire following his death left much of the Greek world divided between three major Greek dynasties: the Antigonids of Macedonia, the Seleucids of what was once nearly the entire Persian domain, and the Ptolemies of Egypt. None were quite capable of toppling the others, and none were nearly as powerful individually as they were united, but divided they would remain until finally the balance of power collapsed. Egypt was facing major decline, and many lesser Greek states expected an immediate land grab by either Macedonia or the Seleucids, and hoping to preserve their autonomy aligned themselves not with a Greek power but with a powerful and expansionist Roman Republic. The major Greek kingdoms felt terribly threatened by this betrayal and began making individual preparations to campaign against Rome. Seeing an opportunity, Hannibal, the greatest general of Rome's greatest rival, would intervene and propose an alliance that would fortify each of their positions and ultimately bring about an end to Rome. Hannibal's plan would see the Seleucids combat and annex Rome's Greek allies, while the Macedonians opened up a second front against Rome proper, leaving the peninsula to fall under Greco-Carthaginian rule. Knowing well that the Greek kingdoms would find themselves with conflicting claims by the end of the war, Hannibal mediated an exchange of territory that would leave for Carthage total control of southern Italy, give full reign over mainland Greece and western Anatolia to Macedonia, and see Carthage assist the Seleucids in a conquest of Egypt. While the states of the Seleucids, Ptolemies, and Antigonids bickered in the west, in the far east remained one final remnant of Alexander's empire, a Greek kingdom that would outlast all the rest, the great state of Greco-Bactria. The Persians had long banished captured Greeks to the fringes of their empire, but upon Alexander's reaching of these lands, the series of ostracized settlements grew into impressive and powerful cities, bolstered by a flood of new Greek settlers. Greco-Bactria would grow lavishly wealthy from supplying Western-made goods to India, and in turn supplying Indian-made goods to the West. This trade became so valuable to the state that it moved to secure a monopoly on overland trade by seizing land from the declining Seleucids and by expanding into northern India. Greco-Bactria would hold out against the resurgent Persians of the Parthian Empire, remaining an enclave of Greek civilization in Central Asia, and a hub of cultural exchange between Persia, India, China, and not to mention itself. This cultural exchange would, however, have a significant impact upon Greco-Bactria, the faith of Buddhism becoming particularly prominent within the state and melding with Greek religious tradition to produce something wholly unique. The Greeks are unable to recover from the years of division which followed the fall of Alexander's empire. The Romans conquer the Macedonians, the Seleucids, and finally the Ptolemies, bringing the Greek world under total Roman control. But Greek culture carried on, and in fact inspired the Romans, and it would be the unity and blending of these two great cultures that would one day give rise to the great states of the West. But before then, the Greeks would have one final moment of grandeur as the Empire of Byzantium. Following the death of Caesar, his general Marcus Antonius would find himself enamored with the Ptolemy queen of Egypt, Cleopatra. It would be through her that Antonius became fully immersed in Greco-fanaticism and came to desire the restoration of the Greek world into a new empire that would rival Alexander's, an empire that would include Rome and have Egypt at its heart. Antonius would first need to contend with Caesar's appointed heir Octavian, but upon defeating him would make Rome an essential province of Egypt under the direct rule of Caesarion, the son of Caesar and Cleopatra. Antonius and Cleopatra would install their children as sub-rulers in Rome, Africa, the Near East, and the Far East, while they themselves ruled under an imperial title from Egypt and Greece. The Far East, which was to be directly administered by Antony and Cleopatra's son Alexander Helios, was yet to be conquered, and with the lands and armies of Rome at his disposal, would serve as Antonius' next conquest, surpassing Alexander the Great as history's greatest general and restoring the Hellenistic order. The 300 Spartans, though impossibly outnumbered by the Persian army in the hundreds of thousands, managed to emerge victorious at Thermopylae. The Persian king Xerxes, so shaken by this impossible outcome, would personally surrender his empire to the Spartan king Leonidas, transforming the city-state into the largest empire in the known world. Content with their winnings, the Spartans would allow the Athenians to retain their naval empire encompassing various islands and coastal possessions. The US of Z thanks you for watching. Support your legion by liking the video, or join our ranks by subscribing for more. Mr. Z, out.